But one of the most serious members of Congress is Representative Mike Gallagher. He's also an expert on the national security and defense, an opponent of the Chinese Communist Party, a Marine, a PhD, a reasonably fast runner over short distances, and a friend. But he went full unidentified flying object on us a couple weeks ago. And I read that transcript and I thought, what is in the water in Green Bay? So joining me now is Congressman and UFO expert Mike Gallagher to enlighten us on the Roswell and the little guys. What's going on, Congressman?
Well, first of all, great to be with you, Hugh, as always. I do not claim to be a UAP expert, unidentified aerial phenomenon. But regardless of what you think, it is true that there are things appearing on our ranges, on our flying ranges, that pilots, U.S. military pilots, Navy pilots in particular, cannot identify. This is great use of graphic that
We've
you're
got
doing
a
right now.
picture up right now of one of the UAPs that Congressman Gallagher is worried about if you're watching on the Salem News Channel. Is that what you've got in mind?
That's what I have. Actually, my preferred hypothesis is that it's not extraterrestrial, but rather interdimensional, and it's us from the future coming back. So I subscribe to the Terminator hypothesis, not the alien hypothesis. But there's
It's the
okay. So let's
multiverse.
lest you think that this is a joke, Hugh. The Secretary of Defense has authorized a task force, a UAP task force, to figure out what's happening on our ranges. It could be weather phenomenon. It could be foreign adversary technology. We should have complete control over our flying ranges. That's my only point. But I did not know that when I asked this line of questioning in the hearing, that I was going to be lighting the UAP universe ablaze. There's a lot of
You
interest in
did.
the
And
subject.
I got lots of emails saying, please, because the UAP universe is an unusual and distinct subset of America. And when anybody asks a question about UAP, I've been doing this for 30 years. I can get a full board all night long to tell me about how, Dash Patterson made a trip aboard one of the flying objects once. A lot of strange things happened to him. So I'm just curious. I've talked to actually F-18 pilots who say you see stuff all the time. And provided it's aliens, I'm not worried. I just don't want it to be the Chinese Communist Party.
That's the primary concern, right? That they have some sort of technology that's fouling our ranges, that can do things that we don't understand yet. The other hypothesis that sort of gets into the more extraterrestrial stuff is that at some point, either our government or their government recovered material that we don't understand. Doesn't necessarily need to be extraterrestrial, but just could be from somewhere that we've been studying for years, and the programs became so highly compartmentalized. And as you know, our national security bureaucracy is just that, a massive bureaucracy. So you can imagine one part of the government doing something that another part of the government, even in this case, a part of the government that has been specifically charged by the Secretary of Defense with investigating these phenomena, doesn't have full awareness of what's going on in the interagency or in some defense contractor in a highly controlled special access program. So I don't know. Let's just figure out what's going on our ranges. Let's be open to all the
This is why
hypotheses.
PhDs are not very good at this. If I had been you in that hearing, I would have asked the DOD guy, have you heard from Zod? Have we got any green kryptonite, red kryptonite, blue kryptonite, or white kryptonite? That's what I would ask. 5 questions and you're done.
Well, Hugh, the whole point of the hearing was to destigmatize the discussion, and you are quite clearly making fun of people that have an interest in UAPs, which
No,
is going
I'm
in the
not. I've
reverse
had the
direction.
Jet Propulsion Lab expert on to ask him if throwing a stove-sized object into a comet wasn't really a Zod invitation. And we had a good conversation. I repeatedly have covered this, as I always have through the years. Let me talk to you about Chesa Boudin, who was just about as close to Earth orbit as anything you talked about to the DOD. He got booted out of the San Francisco prosecutor yesterday. Does Milwaukee have a Soros prosecutor, by the way?
We have a John Chisholm problem in Milwaukee, a DA that has repeatedly refused to really uphold the law. And I think this is what people are waking up to across America, that it's not just the movement by the left to attack law enforcement, to defund the police. It's also a proactive movement by the left to fund very progressive and soft on crime DAs around the country. And that is absolutely related, in my opinion, to the violent crime surge that we've seen. In fact, we saw in the tragedy in Waukesha where a guy mowed down people that were at a a Christmas parade, had been in jail before, was on the radar of officials, and had been let out. And so I think this is something that we need to, if we are now realizing after the 2020 election that we need to prioritize local election school board, let's put scrutiny of DA races, let's put scrutiny of everything that touches the criminal justice system on that list. This is a massive wake-up call for conservatives. And I will say, though I haven't analyzed all of the results in California in detail, it does seem that even some Democrats in California are waking up to the fact that they don't want their cities and counties to be lawless. They don't want to feel unsafe in their neighborhoods and in their homes. They don't want, the train going by to look like something out of the wild, wild west, where people are stealing Amazon boxes because there's no law and order. I think that's
Nathan Hochman is going to be in. Nathan Hochman's going to be our nominee for Attorney General. Lonnie Chen won easily for Secretary of State. I think center right in California is going to be very powerful. Talk to me a little bit about Wisconsin, because I've got tea leaves everywhere. I think Ron Johnson is going to walk into re-election. He'll work very hard for that. I think you're going to be reelected. But are any of the Democrat districts going to flip from blue to red?
One district will flip from blue to red. That's where we have a Navy SEAL running, Derek Van Orden. Ron Kind has retired after nearly 20 years in politics, and so that's been a Democrat seat for over 20 years. Derek Van Orden ran against him last time, very narrowly lost, is running again, is unopposed in the primary, is working his tail off, and he's going to crush it. I mean, that district went for Donald Trump. So that we're going to flip that. And so we're going to have a very strong Republican majority in Wisconsin. Everyone else is going to hold their seat. Redistricting didn't affect that. So we're going to contribute at least one pickup to what I think will be a historic pickup in the House come Election Day.
If in fact we become a majority party, and I'm openly Republican, so I say we, which subcommittee on defense do you want to run, or are you going to focus on intel?
Well,
and
I will
UAFs.
Yeah.
Are you going to get the flying saucer subcommittee?
I'm going to go all in on aliens. I just want to figure it out. This should be something can we not figure this out? All I said, Hugh, was the easiest hypothesis to disconfirm. If you're interested in science,
Congressman, if you give me an opening like this, it's going to be like not going for it on fourth down. I'm never going to forget it.
The easiest one to disconfirm is the idea that it's one of our own programs. And if that's possible, we should just get it out there and disconfirm it so that we can focus on what a more plausible hypothesis is.
If you're not going to close on the Zod issue, I'm moving on. I want to talk to you about the inflation issue in Wisconsin, because we got 3 minutes. This is so bad. Gas in California is at $6.50. Dash is complaining and won't come to work. Dash Patterson. Gas is at $6.50 a gallon in Orange County. I don't know what it is in Green Bay, but I know it's Joe Biden's fault. And if I hear another Democrat say that it's Putin's fault, I may throw up on the air, because it's just simply not Putin's fault. We can produce gasoline. Why don't we use the National Defense Production Act, not for baby formula or solar panels, but to put gasoline into refineries?
Well, in Wisconsin, I think yesterday in Milwaukee, it was above $5. It was $5.11. In Green Bay, it was closer to $4.50, $4.75 in some places. That's massive, right? I mean, this is double what it was a year and a half ago. And for Biden to call it the Putin price hike, to cynically blame it on the war in Ukraine, a war I believe was avoidable had we had a more robust deterrent posture. It's just not serious. It's not serious because it ignores all the war on domestic energy production that they quite literally launched on their first day in office. Look at the executive orders that came out the day Joe Biden was inaugurated. It was the cancellation of the Keystone Pipeline. It was the spread of ESG mandates throughout the federal government. This has been connected from the very beginning to the Biden administration's attempt to destroy domestic energy production. And until they recognize that fact, not only are Americans going to continue to pay the price at the pump, it's also going to undermine our approach to Russia. This is the gaping hole in our foreign policy right now. It's our backwards energy policy, which undermines our strength abroad, undermines our allies abroad, and only actually increases the inefficient consumption of hydrocarbons in other parts of the world, i.e., China and India. So it's actually worse for the environment. It makes absolutely no sense.
Last question, Congressman. The Defense Production Act was invoked by Donald Trump to get Operation Warp Speed going, and we are glad that he got that done. It's now been invoked by President Biden twice for baby formula and solar panels. I don't actually know how it works. I don't claim any expertise on this or unidentified flying object. I want to know whether or not the Defense Production Act could be used in any way to increase gasoline supplies and bring down the price of gas in America.
The problem is, as I see it right now, that is Biden announced yesterday or 2 days ago that he's using the Defense Production Act in order to stimulate the production of solar panels, right? In order to advance Green New Deal priorities. That's an abuse of the Defense Production Act. They're using, in effect, emergency powers, as we knew they would, which is part of the reason I oppose the abuse of emergency powers under a Republican administration. They're basically saying we have a climate emergency, and therefore I'm going to abuse executive authority in order to pick winners and losers in the domestic energy market and further this transition away from fossil fuels. That, in my opinion, is abuse of the Defense Production Act. That being said, the Defense Production Act was used productively in some cases during the pandemic, but it has to be focused on something that's a legitimate national security concern, not something that's on the progressive wish list right now.
But gasoline is. Oil
That's
and
true.
gas are legitimate national security issues. I just don't know if it would do anything.
No, but what you saw when they released oil reserves from the Strategic Petroleum Reserves, one, it didn't do a darn thing to alleviate the crisis, and two, it actually depleted reserves that we might need for a wartime scenario.
Yep.
So we're going to have to backfill those reserves. And oh, by the way, we're going to have to buy back those barrels of oil potentially at a higher price. So it was totally counterproductive. Again, I think this starts with just unleashing the ingenuity and power of domestic energy production in America, ending the war on domestic energy production and innovation, getting the radicals out of FERC, reversing the decision on Keystone, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of things we can do.
Congressman Mike Gallagher, thank you as always. Keep us posted. You know, if you will send me the talking points on UFOs, I'll be ready next time.
Truth is out there.
Make sure you find this guy.
We're looking for him. All right. Doctor in the multiverse. Thank you very much.